Ladies and gentlemen, there are things we wear not merely on our bodies but upon our souls that call out to the unseen world like a beacon in the night. Some adorn themselves in the garments of arrogance, while others wrap themselves in the rags of despair, unaware that such attire makes them irresistible to the forces of darkness. I do not speak of mere cloth and thread, but of habits, attitudes, and choices that serve as invitations to what lurks beyond. If a man builds a house with no walls, should he be surprised when wolves wander in? If a woman wears a cloak woven from pride and deceit, should she wonder why the shadows follow her steps? The things we choose to wear, both physically and spiritually, are not merely outward expressions but reflections of our inner world. Every day we make choices about how we present ourselves, not just in fabric and color, but in attitude, demeanor, and the unseen garments of our soul. Just as our physical clothing can offer warmth, dignity, or protection, our spiritual attire shapes our lives in ways we often fail to recognize. Some clothing empowers, while other garments weaken and expose us to forces that seek to corrupt and destroy. A person who adorns themselves with humility, wisdom, and love walks through life armored against the attacks of darkness. These qualities act as a shield, preventing the whisperings of despair and arrogance from taking root. However, when one drapes themselves in pride, deceit, or resentment, they become an open target for destruction. The unseen realm is not ignorant of these choices. Just as a brightly colored garment can catch the attention of onlookers, so too do certain spiritual conditions draw in forces eager to exploit them. The man who wears pride like a cloak invites his own downfall. The woman who adorns herself with envy finds no peace, no matter how richly dressed she may appear. Some garments are subtle in their corruption, stitched together slowly over time. Bitterness, for instance, does not appear overnight. It is woven from unresolved wounds, layered with grudges, and secured by an unwillingness to forgive. The wearer of such a garment may not even recognize its weight until they are bent on the end, unable to move forward. Likewise, the clothing of vanity seems harmless at first, a simple love of beauty and admiration. Yet, as time passes, it tightens around the soul like an ever-shrinking garment, suffocating the ability to see beyond one's reflection. Other garments are more overtly destructive. Greed and lust cling like robes tainted with poison. They first appear luxurious, promising satisfaction and power, yet they corrode from within. The man obsessed with wealth, always reaching for more, never notices how empty his hands truly are. The woman driven by lust finds herself chasing an illusion, each new conquest leaving her emptier than the last. These are garments that deceive their wearers, making them believe they are gaining while, in truth, they are losing all that truly matters. Perhaps the most deceptive of all is the veil of despair. Unlike other garments which may be worn with pride or indifference, despair is a shroud placed upon the shoulders of the weary. It whispers that hope is lost, that struggle is futile. Those who wear it begin to believe that light has abandoned them, when in reality they have only covered their own eyes. The choices we make in what we wear spiritually are not inconsequential. They affect not only our own path, but the very nature of what we attract into our lives. Some garments invite light and protection, while others serve as beacons for forces that seek to lead us further into darkness. Throughout history, people have recognized that the things we wear both physically and spiritually carry meaning beyond their surface appearance. Clothing can symbolize power, identity, and allegiance, but the garments of the soul hold even greater significance. There are 8 metaphorical garments that do not merely reflect a person's inner state, but actively invite darkness into their lives. These are not simple mistakes or fleeting moments of weakness. They are choices, habits, and ways of being that open doors to corruption and destruction. Those who wear them may not recognize the danger at first, but over time the weight of these garments becomes unbearable. The first is pride, a cloak woven from arrogance and self-importance. It blinds its wearer to wisdom, making them deaf to correction and unable to see their own flaws. It is the preferred garment of those who believe themselves above others, yet it is the very thing that brings them low. The proud man walks tall, convinced of his strength, until the moment his own blindness leads him to a fall. Bitterness is another heavy garment, binding itself to the heart like chains. Unlike momentary anger, bitterness is a choice to carry wounds instead of healing from them. It turns past pain into present misery, feeding itself on grudges and resentment. The one who wears it finds themselves trapped in a cycle of anger and regret, unable to move forward. Deception is a mask rather than a cloak, yet it functions as a garment all the same. To live behind a lie is to live in the shadows, where darkness thrives. The longer a person wears the mask of deception, the more their true self fades. They may fool others for a time, but in the end, they fool only themselves. Truth becomes foreign to them, and without truth, they are left defenseless against the forces that prey upon the deceived. Vanity is another dangerous garment, appearing harmless at first glance. It is the obsession with appearance, reputation, and the admiration of others. Those who wrap themselves in vanity become prisoners of their reflection, constantly seeking validation yet never feeling satisfied. They measure their worth by shallow things, leaving themselves exposed to insecurity and manipulation. Greed is worn like gloves, grasping at wealth, power, and possessions without restraint. It convinces its wearer that they never have enough, driving them to pursue more at the cost of their soul. Greed blinds a person to what truly matters, making them hoard what is fleeting while neglecting what is eternal. Impatience is a pair of restless shoes, always moving, never still. The impatient refuse to wait, refuse to listen, and refuse to trust. They rush ahead without wisdom, leading themselves into trouble time and time again. Lust is a belt that tightens around the soul, leading one into passion without purpose. It promises pleasure but delivers bondage, reducing love to a transaction and desire to an addiction. Despair is the heaviest garment of all, a veil that smothers hope. It convinces its wearer that the light is gone, though in truth they have merely closed their eyes. Pride, bitterness, deception, and vanity are not just flaws of character, they are chains that bind a person to destruction. They work silently, wrapping themselves around the soul, whispering lies that seem comforting at first, but ultimately lead to ruin. Each of these traits blinds a person, cutting them off from wisdom, humility, and truth. They take root in the heart, shaping thoughts and actions until the one who wears them can no longer see the path they are walking. Though they appear to offer strength or protection, they do nothing but lead a person further into isolation, self-destruction, and despair. Pride is the most insidious of all, for it convinces its bearer that they need nothing outside of themselves. It builds walls around the heart, keeping out correction, growth, and grace. The proud person does not seek wisdom, for they believe they already have it. They do not ask for help, for they consider themselves above the need for it. Pride blinds a person to their own faults, while magnifying the faults of others. It feeds an illusion of superiority, making it impossible for them to recognize their own downfall until it is too late. Those who wear pride like a cloak often walk toward destruction without realizing that they are the architects of their own demise. Bitterness, though different in nature, is just as dangerous. It does not shout like pride but whispers, slowly poisoning the soul. It is the decision to hold on to past wounds instead of healing from them. The bitter person carries offenses like a treasured possession, unwilling to let them go. They build their identity around their suffering, allowing resentment to take root and grow. Instead of moving forward, they become trapped in a cycle of anger and pain, reliving past wrongs and feeding the fire of their own misery. Bitterness blinds a person to the possibility of healing, for it convinces them that to forgive or to release their pain is to betray themselves. But in truth, it is bitterness that betrays them, keeping them bound to the past and preventing them from stepping into peace. Deception is another snare that leads to ruin. It is not only the act of lying to others, but more dangerously, the act of lying to oneself. The deceived person believes their own illusions, crafting a reality that suits their desires but does not align with the truth. Over time, they lose sight of what is real, becoming trapped in the very web they wove. Deception isolates, for truth is the foundation of real connection. The more a person deceives, the more they must maintain the illusion, and eventually they become a stranger even to themselves. Vanity, like pride, blinds a person, but in a different way. It fixes their gaze upon themselves, making them obsessed with their own image, status, or achievements. The vain person lives for admiration, measuring their worth by external validation. They become a prisoner of appearances, always chasing approval but never finding true contentment. Vanity keeps a person distracted, ensuring that they never look beyond themselves to see what truly matters. Greed, impatience, lust, and despair are forces that, when embraced, turn against those who wear them. They do not need an external enemy to bring about destruction, because they lead a person into self-inflicted ruin. Each of these traits distorts reality, making it impossible to see clearly. They promise satisfaction but deliver emptiness, convincing their host that they are gaining something when, in fact, they are losing everything that truly matters. They create an illusion of control, yet the deeper a person falls into them, the more enslaved they become. Greed is an endless hunger that consumes all in its path. It tells a person that they never have enough, that fulfillment is always just beyond their reach. No matter how much is gained, money, power, possessions, it is never sufficient. Greed does not allow for gratitude, contentment, or generosity. It is an insatiable force that keeps its host chasing shadows. Those who live for accumulation find themselves weighed down by their own desires, unable to enjoy the very things they sought. Greed blinds a person to what truly holds value, convincing them to trade love, peace, and integrity for things that will one day slip through their fingers like sand. In the end, the greedy do not own their wealth, it owns them. Impatience is another force that leads to self-destruction, though its victims often fail to recognize it until they have already suffered the consequences. The impatient person refuses to wait, refuses to trust, and refuses to accept that some things take time. They rush ahead without wisdom, making reckless choices that lead to regret. They are easily frustrated, unable to endure discomfort or delay, and in their hurry to grasp what they desire, they often grasp disaster instead. Impatience robs a person of growth, for the best things in life, wisdom, love, character, are not acquired in haste. Those who are ruled by impatience make decisions that bring pain not only to themselves but to those around them, and by the time they realize their folly, the damage is already done. Lust, like greed, promises fulfillment but delivers only emptiness. It reduces desire to a shallow craving, stripping love of its depth and meaning. The one who is ruled by lust believes they are pursuing pleasure, but in truth, they are being pursued by an unquenchable fire. Each indulgence only deepens the void, leaving them more restless and unsatisfied than before. Lust does not lead to intimacy or connection, it leads to isolation, for it treats people as objects rather than souls. Over time, it consumes integrity, self-respect, and the ability to experience real love, leaving behind only regret and ruin. Despair is the most destructive of all, for it convinces a person that all hope is lost. Unlike the others which tempt with false promises, despair offers nothing but darkness. It blinds a person to the light that still exists, making them believe they are beyond redemption. It leads to paralysis, to surrender to the slow decay of the soul. Those who embrace despair seal their own fate, for they stop seeking, stop fighting, and stop believing that they can rise again. Recognizing and casting off these garments is essential to spiritual strength, because they are not merely bad habits or character flaws, they are chains that weaken the soul. The person who wears them may not immediately see their effect, but over time they drain life, clarity, and purpose. Just as a traveler burdened with heavy, tattered clothing cannot walk far, those who remain clothed in pride, bitterness, greed, impatience, deception, vanity, lust, and despair find themselves unable to move forward. Removing them is not simply a choice for comfort, it is a necessity for survival. The first step in casting off these garments is recognition, for many who wear them have grown so accustomed to their weight that they no longer notice their presence. Pride disguises itself as confidence, making it difficult to see the difference. Bitterness often feels like justice, greed like ambition, and impatience like urgency. Deception can become second nature, vanity can be mistaken for self-care, lust can appear as passion, and despair can seem like reality itself. Each garment clings to its wearer, whispering excuses for its presence, and unless a person deliberately examines their own heart, they will continue to wear them unknowingly. Once recognized, these garments must be cast off with intention. Unlike physical clothing, they do not simply fall away, they must be rejected and replaced. Pride is removed by humility, which requires the difficult act of admitting weakness and seeking wisdom beyond oneself. Bitterness is cast off through forgiveness, which is not a feeling but a decision to release the chains of past wounds. Greed loosens its grip when gratitude and generosity take its place, shifting the focus from what is lacking to what has already been given. Impatience dissolves in the presence of trust, learning to accept that some things require time and cannot be forced. Deception can only be removed by truth, which is often painful but necessary. The one who has lived behind a mask must be willing to step into the light, to face reality even when it is uncomfortable. Vanity loses its power when identity is no longer tied to appearance or status but to something deeper and unshakable. Lust is cast aside by discipline, by redirecting desire into love that values rather than consumes. Despair, the heaviest of all garments, can only be lifted by hope, by the decision to believe that darkness is not the end of the story. Casting off these garments is not a one-time action but a daily choice. The world will always offer new cloaks of pride, new chains of bitterness, and new disguises of deception, but the one who remains vigilant, guarding their soul against these trappings, will grow stronger. Spiritual strength is not found in being perfect, but in continually rejecting what weakens the soul and embracing what gives life. The lighter the burden, the easier it is to walk forward, and the clearer the path becomes. Virtues like humility, truth, and love serve as protection against darkness, because they act as shields against the forces that seek to corrupt, deceive, and destroy. While pride, deception, and hatred create openings for darkness to enter, these virtues close the gaps, fortifying the soul and strengthening the spirit. Darkness thrives in arrogance, falsehood, and selfishness, but where humility, truth, and love are present, it has no place to take root. They are not merely pleasant qualities to possess, they are armor, the very substance that keeps a person from being overtaken by the forces that lead to destruction. Humility is the first, and perhaps the most important defense. It removes the blindfold that pride fastens tightly around the eyes, allowing a person to see themselves honestly. The proud are easily led astray because they refuse to acknowledge their faults, but the humble are open to correction, making them less susceptible to deception. They recognize their limitations and seek wisdom beyond themselves, ensuring that they do not walk into destruction by their own arrogance. Humility also fosters a deep inner strength because it frees a person from the exhausting need to prove their worth. Rather than building walls of superiority that ultimately isolate them, the humble remain connected to truth, to wisdom, and to others. Truth is another powerful protection, a light that dispels the shadows where lies and corruption grow. Deception, whether self-imposed or imposed by others, is one of the greatest weapons of darkness. It distorts reality, leading a person further from wisdom and deeper into confusion. But truth is unwavering, and those who commit themselves to it cannot be easily led astray. Embracing truth requires courage because it often reveals uncomfortable realities, but it is only by facing these realities that a person can truly be free. Truth exposes manipulation, breaks the chains of self-delusion, and clears the path forward. Those who build their lives on lies will see them crumble, but those who stand on truth will remain unshaken. Love is the greatest of all protections, for it is the force that binds together all other virtues. Where greed seeks to possess, love seeks to give. Where lust devalues, love honors. Where bitterness holds on to wounds, love forgives. Darkness thrives in division, fear, and cruelty, but love disarms these entirely. It softens the hardest hearts, heals the deepest wounds, and casts out the loneliness that often leads people into despair. Those who are filled with love cannot be consumed by hate, nor can they be easily manipulated by fear. Love does not blind, it clarifies. It allows people to see beyond themselves, to recognize the dignity of others, and to live with purpose. A person who is clothed in humility, truth, and love walks through life with a strength that no external force can easily shake. While the world will always seek to pull people toward darkness, those who hold fast to these virtues will remain steadfast. They will not be easily deceived, nor will they be driven by selfishness or fear. Instead, they will stand firm, protected by the very qualities that lead not only to survival but to true spiritual strength,